Book of Divinity, which descended to the earth and became known by the names Div and Diva and Divine laws, being God's labors in atmospheria, for a period of 3,100 years, during the passage of the earth from the Ark of Lu to the Ark of Speta in Etheria, and on the earth from the time of Zarathustra to the time of Abraham and Brahma and Po and Iawata. Chapter 1. God, son of Jehovah, said, By virtue of mine own authority, and in the name of Jehovah, creator of all things, peace and comprehensive judgment be unto angels and mortals. 2. That ye may be taught from the little that has been demonstrated in the world, of governments and principalities being manifested on earth, that similar organic bodies exist in the heavens belonging to the earth. 3. Which heavenly places and governments were the cause and forerunners of good governments manifested amongst mortals. 4. Jehovah said, He that is chief of a government on earth shall be called king, but he who is chief of my heavenly government shall be called God. And it was so. 5. I, who am God in mine own behalf, for the enlightenment of the world, declare the glory and wisdom of Jehovah above all things on the earth or in the heavens above. 6. Wherein Jehovah provided that no man could be a king forever, but must give away to a successor, even so in his heavens, provided he also unto his gods and lords for successors at certain periods of time. 7. That the way might be open for the everlasting resurrection of all men, whereby all who choose may in time become also lords and gods for the countless worlds that now are, and shall yet be created. 8. Jehovah said, I blow my breath outward, and, behold, all things are created. They go away in disorder, but they come back to me orderly and in organic companies, and every individual member is like a tree, bloomed in perfection in every branch. 9. Jehovah said, These companies returning to me in all their glory are marshaled in decorum and disciplined by my gods, for such is their labors. 10. Jehovah said, The labors of my God shall be chiefly in atmospheria, Hada. Nevertheless, my gods and lords shall not only labor with the spirits of the dead to teach them organic discipline and harmony, but they shall provide unto mortals that they also may learn the system and glory of my creations. 11. In the time of Fragapati, in the dawn of the cycle of Lu in heaven, Jehovah commanded the founding of an organic congress for his God and lords and his lord gods. 12. And Fragapati thus created the organic body, and named it the Diva, making God the chief thereof, with the title Div, even as is known to this day in the sacred books of mortals. 13. Jehovah said, In the early days of a world I give them the races of man on the earth, a despot to rule over them. But in time, after I give them representative governments with many voices, having a right to help make the laws. Even so do I provide unto the Hayden heavens. In the early days I provide a God who shall be dictator and governor in his own way. But in after times I provide a parliament in heaven, wherein my God and my Lord shall jointly consult together in framing laws for angels and mortals, and these shall be called the Divine laws. 14. Jehovah said, Behold, my God and lords and subgods shall teach the same thing in the different parts of the earth and these heavens. I will not have one Lord teaching one thing in one place, and another teaching the same thing differently in another place. 15. Jehovah said, My God and lords shall provide comprehensively, so that all peoples on earth and in heaven may be drawn toward me in harmony and discipline. 16. God said, I, God of earth, being made Div by Jehovah's will, through his son Fragapati, heard the Creator's voice, saying, 17. Div, my son, proclaim thou the Ormazdian law, and the Ihormazdian law, and the Zarathustrian law. 18. God said, This then is the Ormazdian law. Ormazd, the Creator, displayeth his creations, which he created. He set the stars in the firmament. These are the words of the book of the Almighty. He made the earth substances of the earth, and all the things thereon and therein. These are the words of the Creator, Ormazd, the Jehovah. 19. The substance of things going and coming from ever, creating and dissolving from one shape into another. These are the Ormazdian law, the Jehovian law. By virtue of his presence, these things speak, impress upon one another forever. What these things speak upon the soul of man, write upon the soul of man. These are man's knowledge, acquired by the Ormazdian law, the Jehovian law. What these things speak upon the soul of angels, write upon the souls of angels. These are the angels' knowledge, acquired by the Ormazdian law, the Jehovian law. 20. God said, this also is the Ormazdian law, perpetual growth. As a man being brought forth out of what was not an entity, thereby becoming an entity, this is brought about the Ormazdian law. 21. With capacity in man for life everlasting, with capacity to acquire knowledge and power forever, and never attain to the Almighty, as a road whereon a man may run in full liberty forever, and never come to the end thereof, rejoicing on his journey. This is the Ormazdian law. 22. As the actions of corporeal substances produce light, as light is the expression and speech of certain corporeal changes, so is Ormazd, the master of light, the Creator, that which illuminateth the soul of man, making man conscious that he is, making man express his impressions. This is the Ormazdian law, that this is the ever-presence that terminateth not forever. 23. Though worlds come into being and go out of being, as such, yet Ormazd remaineth. He is the forever, and within him are all creations created. These are the Ormazdian law, the Jehovian law. 24. God said, this then that followeth is the Ahwamazdian law, the school of knowledge, kept by God and his lords for teaching mortals and angels. 25. Wherein certain discipline and words are necessary to cause the congregation of men and angels to dwell together and to travel onward forever in harmony and rejoicing. 26. Behold, a great multitude was in disorder and confusion, and unhappiness resulted. Then came order and discipline, and the multitude were harmonized and filled with rejoicing. This that was accomplished, it was the Ahwamazdian law. 27. Jehovah had said, behold, I create man with the possibility of becoming a creator under me. The first lesson of creation I give into man's hands is that he shall create harmony and affiliation within himself and with his neighbors, that the many may become in concert, even as one man. 28. God said, such was the Ormazdian law, to create man with the possibility of becoming a creator under Jehovah, Ormazd, but wherein man and angel, through their God and lords, began to create harmony and discipline. This was the Ahwamazdian law. 29. As the manual of arms is to soldiers, making them a unit in motion, so is the Ahwamazdian law in making and teaching peace and order and unity amongst mortals on earth and angels in heaven. 30. By the Ahwamazdian law are the heavenly kingdoms in Hada maintained, and by the same law are great kingdoms and nations on earth built up. The discipline of God and the lords through their ashars, in ruling over mortals for the comprehensive benefit of the whole. This is the Ahwamazdian law. It was called the Ahwamazdian law because God and his lords, through their ashars, keep guard and rule over all good mortals and angels for their own exaltation in the heavens above. 31. God said, therefore followeth then the Zarathustrian law, the bestowal of words to mortals, of the dominions of gods and his lords, the making of all good mortals joint heirs and members of the same heavenly kingdom, wherein God and his lords and their holy council in heaven devise and administer laws for the ultimate resurrection of all men. 32. The revealed word of heaven to mortals. This is the Zarathustrian law. 33. The word was with God. and God became the Word. This is the Zarathustrian law. 34. For the Word being established through Zarathustra became the life of God in flesh, being perpetual to the end of the world. 35. For though Zarathustra be forgotten, and the words of his mouth remembered not on the whole earth, yet the Zarathustrian law, the revelations of God to man, became everlasting in the souls of mortals from that time forth forever and ever. 36. For man to know of, and to desire to become one with the All-Highest, this is the Zarathustrian law. Nor mattereth it through what name he striveth. Even so he strive to know the will of God. 37. When a king desireth soldiers for his army, he sendeth recruiting emissaries, calling, Come ye, join the armies of the king. Even so, but for peace and righteousness, sendeth God his lords and holy angels down to mortals, saying, Come ye, join the kingdom of God. And when they come, behold, they use certain rites and ceremonies with words and sacred days. The name of these rites and ceremonies and the words revealed by God, these are the Zarathustrian laws, for they are the initiative by which mortals become joint workers with God and his lords. Chapter 2. God said, Be attentive, O man, to the voice of thy Lord and his angels. Be patient, that thou mayest understand the dominion of thy God, and add glory unto the Almighty. 2. The Div was the chief, and the lords and their officers comprised the Divine Congress of the period of time whereof this book pertaineth. 3. And such mortals of that day, who joined in the armies of God, were represented by the voice of guardian angels through their Lord, according to the nation or place represented. 4. And the Ashars reported to their Lord, as to the conditions and places of mortals, and as to the conditions and places of angels also. And the Lord spake thereon in the Diva. 5. And the Div decreed laws and governments unto the mortals and angels, according to what was best for them. 6. Jehovah said, I am the light and the life. Behold me, I am Ormazd. When I shape my thoughts into words, behold, I am Ihwamazda. I am the word. When the words of my kingdom are registered with mortals, behold me. I am the Zarathustrian law. I am 3 in 1. 7. Even so have I given unto thee, O Div, and to my angels and my mortals, for ye three shall be a unit in the furtherance of my kingdoms. 8. Behold, your labors shall be henceforth called Divinity, Divin, and whoso falleth under your inspiration shall be called Divine, Divas. 9. God said, Consider, O man, the wisdom of thy God, to perceive what is feasible to thine own judgment, and be thou far-reaching with thine own members. 10. The Div decreed, to carry birthrights down to mortals, to teach mortals when their children were born to consecrate them to Diva, under a rod with water, after the same manner Essenes were baptized in heaven, with rites and ceremonies and words, according to the Zarathustrian law, the Ihwamazdian law, the Ormazdian law. 11. God said, In the time of the baptismal of mortal children, behold, my lords appointed Ashars unto such children, to keep them in the way of the Almighty. 12. This was the first divine law. 13. The Div decreed, to establish wedding rites and ceremonies with words and processions, in order to bind firmly monogamic marriages, according to the Zarathustrian law, the Ihwamazdian law, the Ormazdian law. 14. God said, In the time of marriages, behold, my lords appointed new Ashars unto man and wife, whose duties were to minister unto them as unto a small kingdom for the glory of Jehovah. 15. This was the second divine law. 16. The Div decreed to establish funeral rites and ceremonies with words according to the Diva, that is, the Zarathustrian, the Ihwamazdian, and the Ormazdian law. 17. This was the third divine law. 18. God said, In the birth rites, in the marriage rites, and in the funeral rites, recording angels of the Lord were present, and afterward they reported these things to my kingdom in heaven. 19. And all such mortals as carried out these rites and ceremony with words were named Zarathustrians. Nevertheless, there were many others who, not being capable of the inspiration, stood aloof from me and my kingdoms. 20. Jehovah said, I blame not my God and my lords, that their love ran more to the favor of such mortals as became Zarathustrians, than to such as rejected God and his lords. Neither do I censure God and his lords for favoring their chosen and building cities, nations, and empires, leaving such other mortals as were enemies to perish in their cities, kingdoms, and nations. 21. God said, Ye who are one with the divine law are free from the law, but they that reject me and my kingdom are bound by the law. 22. Of the first three divine laws, God said, These are the sacred words decreed to mortals by father or mother. I bestow this, my child, to be a good Zarathustrian, according to the diva. And in marriage, by the bride and bridegroom, I bestow myself to this my mate, a good Zarathustrian, according to the diva. And in sacrament previous to death, I confess with repentance, I, a good Zarathustrian, unto thee, O Ormas, and to thy lords of the heavenly host of Diva. Chapter 3. God said, Behold, I come to reveal what was done in heaven, that thou, O man, mayest understand the cause of things being done on earth. 2. These divine laws were made in heaven and by the lords of that day, through their angels, given to mortals, whereby mortals became a manifestation of heavenly things. 3. Here, then, followeth to wit. 4. If a man be not too weak, he shall confess to all the lords with repentance. On the other hand, if he be too weak to utter words, then shall the priest confess him by holding the right hand whilst he saith the holy words. And whilst this is being done, the Ashars shall provide a sufficient number of spirits to receive the newborn, and bring him to the place in heaven that hath been previously selected for him. 5. The third divine law also decreed as followeth. If the Essian be a Zarathustrian, and his kin in heaven be Drujas, he shall not be taken to the heaven where they are, nor shall his kin be permitted to see him for 30 days. But after 30 days, in his own place in heaven, his kin, if Drujas, may be permitted to see him, but only under guard. 6. The fourth divine law. If the Essian be a Zarathustrian, and his kin in heaven belong to the organic heavens, then he shall be taken to them, and his abiding place shall be with them for a season. 7. The fifth divine law. If the Essian be a Zarathustrian, his spirit shall not be suffered to remain longer than 3 days and 3 nights about his mortal kindred, and then he shall be taken to his place in heaven, and given into the keeping of the Asaphs, who shall explain all things to him. 8. God said, Whilst the mortal priest is reciting prayers after death, in the morning, at noon, and at sunset, the Ashars shall assemble in the same house, along with the newborn spirit, and join in the singing and praying, for it will pacify the spirit, and restore him to know what hath taken place. And this shall be called the sixth divine law. 9. God said, And the same law shall apply in the case of a Zarathustrian woman as with a man. In the case of a Zarathustrian child that died in infancy, the div decreed. 10. The seventh divine law. The child of a Zarathustrian, being too young to speak, shall not make confession, even through the priest. The mortal priest shall say, O thou, master light, behold, my child is dead. Receive thou its little tender spirit. Take it to thy heavenly place of delight. And the Asher shall take the young Essian to a place suited to it, and deliver it to the Asaphs. And the Asaph shall examine it. And if it require fetal, they shall provide it in heaven, if possible. But if it be too young, then the Asaphs with a sufficient guard shall take it back to its mortal mother, or to its mortal father, or to its brother, or its sister, or other near kin, or to whomsoever the Asaphs find most advisable. And the spirit child shall be put to bed every night with its fetal mother, or fetal father, that its spirit may draw sustenance sufficient to grow into everlasting life. But the Asaphs who have it in charge shall bring it away in the morning to its place in heaven. But in no case shall a Zarathustrian spirit child be left to fetal with a contentious mortal woman, nor with a drunken mortal man. 11. God propounded. If a Zarathustrian be dead, and his spirit's many years in a place of heavenly delight, and then his mortal wife die, and she be not a Zarathustrian? 12. The members of the Diva all spake. Then God decreed the 8th divine law, which was, the spirit of such a woman shall not be suffered to go to the place of her husband. For 30 days she shall be kept in a place suitable for her. After that she may visit her husband under guard. But until she accept the Ormazdian law, she shall not dwell with the husband in heaven, nor with her children in heaven. And if she have mortal children, she shall not be permitted to see them, save under guard. 13. The 9th divine law was the same, wherein a Zarathustrian woman whose husband was not a Zarathustrian, for he was bound by the same law, and thus kept separate in heaven until he accepted the Ormazdian law. 14. God propounded, if a Zarathustrian have a wife who is not a Zarathustrian, and she have an untimely birth, whether by accident or abortion, what then of the spirit of that child? On this all the members of Diva spake, and after that God decreed. 15. Such spirit shall not be brought to heaven for a season, but shall be fetaled on its natural mother or father, day and night, until the full 9 months are completed, and then it shall be delivered with due ceremonies by the Ashars. After that it shall be fetal, the same as in the 7th divine law, and this was the 10th divine law. 16. The 11th divine law. If a Zarathustrian attain to maturity before he die, his spirit shall be Essien 2 years, and during this time he shall be attended by not less than 2 Asaphs when he goeth away from his heavenly home. And the Asaphs shall teach him the mode of travel, the manner of knowing localities, both on the earth and in the first resurrection. And they shall teach him the varieties and kinds of food suited to the highest best education of a spirit. But when he travelleth with his companions of his own heavenly group, then the Asaphs of the group shall go along with him and them. And during the 2 years he shall be provided from the stores in heaven with food and clothes, and he shall not labor to provide himself with anything. 17. The 12th divine law was in reference to the same spirit, which was, at the end of 2 years the Asaph shall deliver him, and such of his groups as are prepared, into the department of the first instruction. And his name shall be entered in the library of the department of heaven as entered apprentice in the first resurrection. Here his first lessons shall be as to making clothes and providing food for him and others, and he shall be entitled to participate, if he so desire, in the recreations of the entered apprentices, such as music, dancing, marching, painting, or other arts. 18. The 13th divine law was in reference to the same spirit, which was, not less than 2 years shall he serve as entered apprentice, and longer if his proficiency be not sufficient for advancement. But when he is advanced, he shall no longer be called entered apprentice, but a craftsman. And he shall be taken to a place suitable, where his labor will contribute to the heavenly kingdoms. And his recreations shall entitle him to instruction in both corporeal and Assaean knowledge, and their correspondence. As a craftsman, he shall serve 7 years. 19. The 14th divine law was in reference to the same spirit, which was, the craftsman's examination being completed, he shall then return to labor in the nurseries in heaven, becoming assistant to the Asaphs. And during this period he shall report himself at the roll call, and his teachers shall take him with them down to mortals and teach them how to see and hear corporeal things. And they shall also explain to him fetalism and the obsessions of mortals by Drujas, that he may understand the cause of lying and of stealing and of tattling and of conspiracies and of murders amongst mortals. 20. The 15th divine law was of the same spirit, which was, after he hath served 3 years as nurse assistant to the Asaphs, he shall be promoted to the hospitals in heaven, as assistant to the physicians, and they shall teach him the restoration of spirits in chaos, and crazy spirits, and deformed spirits, and of sick spirits, and of spirits afflicted with foul smells, that cannot clean themselves, especially of the spirits of women who produce abortions on themselves, or suffered it to be done unto them, and of monomaniacs, and all manner of diseased spirits. And the physicians shall take him with them when they go down to mortals to remove fetals, and he shall learn how they are severed safely to both. And they shall take him to the battlefields, where mortals slay one another, whose spirits are in chaos, or are still fighting, and he shall assist in bringing them away from the corporeal place, and also learn how to restore them, and where to deliver them when restored. And if there be knots in any region near at hand, the physician shall take him to the knot, and show him how they are untied, and how they are mastered and delivered. And if there be any hell near at hand, the physicians shall take him thither, and teach him how hell is delivered, and its people restored. For 10 years shall he serve as assistant to the physicians. 21. The 16th divine law was of the same spirit, which was, having fulfilled the part of assistant physician, he shall be promoted to the full rank of nurse, and in that department he shall serve 10 years, which completeth his emancipation in that order. And thereafter any and all the nurseries of the lower heavens shall be free and open to him, and he shall go to whatsoever one he desireth, save when specially commanded for a certain work by his Lord or by the God of his division. 22. The 17th divine law was of the same spirit, which was, having passed a satisfactory examination by his Lord or his Lord's attendants, he shall be promoted to the full rank of physician, and in that department in heaven he shall serve 50 years, and then his emancipation in that order shall be complete, and all the hospitals in the lower heavens shall be open to him, and he shall choose whichever of them he desireth at his place of labor, unless specially required by his Lord or by the God of his division. 23. The 18th divine law was of the same spirit, which was, he shall now pass an examination by his lords of his Lord's deputy, and if he prove himself in a knowledge of the structure of both the corporeal and spiritual man, he shall be registered as entered factor. And he shall serve 12 years in forming and making fabrics for raiment and for other useful and ornamental purposes. 24. The 19th divine law was like unto the 18th, save that his labor shall be gathering and transporting food for other 12 years. And that the 20th divine law was like unto the 19th, save that his labor shall be the wielding of large bodies and of carrying the same long distances. 25. The 21st divine law of the same spirit was, he shall now enter the creative as an apprentice. 30 years shall he serve in the creative, learning how to create. And the 22nd divine law was like unto the 21st, save that he shall dwell in Uz and serve 12 years in learning Uz. 26. The 23rd divine law of the same spirit was, he shall now enter college and serve according to his talents from 5 to 40 years, learning, measuring distances, rotations, velocities, magnets, corporeal and Assayan currents of vortices, roadways and vortices, and how to measure vortices by their spiral force, how to find the center and the periphery of vortices, and if he serve the full term of 40 years, he shall have the freedom of the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd commandments, and all such places shall be forever open to him. And if he choose to go into any of them, he shall do so, unless especially ordered to some other emergent place by his Lord or God of his division. 27. The 24th divine law of the same spirit was, he shall now enter architecture as an apprentice, and learn the building of heavenly mansions and cities, and he shall serve 8 years, and be promoted to build judgment seats and thrones, and serve 16 years more. 28. The 25th divine law of the same spirit was, he shall now be eligible to the school of light and darkness, and learn the relative power of attraction and propulsion belonging to them, And his education here shall embrace practice and experiment, and he shall serve 70 years for the full course, after which, if he be proficient in creating light and darkness, he shall be emancipated from the 24th and 25th divine laws, and all such places shall be open and free to him forever. 29. The 26th divine law of the same Spirit was, he shall now serve 24 years in building and propelling heavenly boats and small ships. And the 27th divine law was of like kind, which was, that he shall now travel 50 years in atmospheria, and on the earth, and on the oceans of the earth. 30. This completeth the primary education and the first resurrection.